because I forgot to do that last month. I apologize for that. It's such a great presentation by Andrew, and I kicked myself for somehow forgetting to hit the record button. So that's why that's not on YouTube, in case you were looking. So Ray, he's already doing it. Okay, Ray's gonna admit the rest of the people. So we can get rolling here. So welcome everyone. I think we've got a great meeting tonight. It should be very interesting and a lot of fun. It's members night, so our presenters, each doing about a half hour of presentation, including questions, are Mike O'Brien and Pat Rose and Bruce Leonard. So it should be really interesting, very, very different topics. And so we've got the photo challenge. The photo challenge was well attended. We have 45 images for the theme of By Human Hands. So I think everyone will enjoy that presentation. So welcome everyone. And if you are a first-time visitor, I know that sometimes there are visitors I'm not aware of because I'm not always the one who hands out the link to the meeting. So if you are a first-time visitor, welcome. We're delighted to have you with us, and make sure you check out our website to get a little bit more information about what we're all about. And I wanted to give a special welcome to members. We've had a lot of new people joining in the last 2 or 3 months. And so, and I believe these are all members who are new to the forum. If you're a returning member, I apologize. I don't know everybody yet, but folks who've joined up in the last 3 months, Douglas Lowell, Daniel Fisher, Veronica Garina, Jeanette Elliott, and Lawrence Greenhill. If you were with us tonight, welcome, and we're delighted to have you with us. We're delighted to have you as members, and we all look forward to meeting you in person, hopefully in the not too distant future. We have a couple of quick announcements. We're well underway with our workshop season here, and we're halfway through the Mark Kergel workshop, which was started last Saturday, and will conclude. The second session will be this coming Saturday. And I'm hearing very enthusiastic, positive reports about how that's going. So I'm very pleased about that. And for your future planning, I wanted to mention the next workshop, which will be happening starting in May and going through early June. And that's a workshop being offered by Bobby Abrahamson, who is actually going to be our October speaker. And the title of his workshop, brace yourself, is Ugly, Shocking, and Bizarre, Pushing Your Creative Boundaries. So I think that should be a very interesting workshop. Bobby is well known to last month's speaker, Andrew Greenhill, and comes highly recommended as an excellent teacher. And we'll be getting out an announcement about this workshop this week, so you can start to learn more about the details of what it'll be. But his whole emphasis is about making images that speak to your heart and your personal point of view. So it's very much about discovering your own voice and how you want to express yourself photographically. So it should be very interesting. And so we'll get more information out to you on that, but I just wanted to let you know that's coming. And then wanted to just make a quick mention for the 2021 book project. You have a lot of time. Images aren't due until the end of June, so you have till June 30th. But please keep that in the back of your mind. I think this book is going to be really interesting. The theme, A Break in the Clouds, is I think will stimulate a lot of interesting thoughts and a lot of interesting images. So keep that in the back of your mind. Yep.
Can I just add to that? I mean, though the deadline is June 30th, we're happy to take images earlier than that. Just wanted to point that out.
Good point. Yeah, our crack book editors are anxiously awaiting your submission. So yeah, if you're ready, don't hesitate. They can start laying out the pages anytime. And then finally, I just wanted to mention Instagram again. We're at a point right now where it would be a great time if you've been thinking about getting some of your images up on Instagram. Pat is ready and waiting to look at a fresh batch of images. So if you're interested in doing that, you know, it's a great opportunity to get your images out there in the public forum. We have about 900 followers and growing. So use the contact us page on the website if you're interested, and we'll get you in touch with Pat for Instagram. So those are the announcements. And any questions about any of that? So next, I want to go ahead and show the results of the March Photo Challenge. So if you will bear with me for just a moment, we will get that going. Actually, let me check. Sorry about that. I think I got that setting right. Okay, here we go.
Blues. The before picture.
Wow.
All right. Very nice, everyone.
Hey, this is Patrick Corrigan. If I can make a comment, Zoom is optimized for the human voice, which means there's a lot of filtering and compression going on. I put together a document on setting it up for music. If anybody's interested, if somebody can send me a email link, I can mail it out so you can publish it in the newsletter if you so choose. You just send me something in the chat here.
Okay, great. I take it from your comment that the sound didn't sound very good.
That's typical of Zoom,
Yeah.
but you can make it sound really good and it's not difficult.
Okay, yeah, that's great.
Good idea.
Yeah, exactly. I know I'm not sure I hit the switch or not, but I know on the Zoom, when you do share a screen, there's an opportunity for putting the internal sound on versus using the microphone. And I may have forgotten to do that. And
Yeah.
I know that when you do that, it's a lot better. So if I missed that, I apologize.
There's also a function called original sound, and I do a lot of online music. That's why I'm commenting on it.
Perfect, perfect. We appreciate that, and I will be in touch with you for that. So but as far as the images go, they're very nice. Thank you everyone for sending those in. It was a very nice collection for a monthly challenge. I thought it was very nice. So, okay, very good. So as I mentioned earlier, we've got 3 presenters tonight that we're about to start in on, and they're each going to speak and take questions for a 30-minute combined 30 minutes each. So I will be sort of guiding, watching the time so we make sure that we don't get too off on the time, and I will sort of give you the speakers, I'll give you kind of a warning around 23 minutes or so. If you haven't wrapped it up on your own by then, I'll encourage you to do so there's a little bit of time for questions. So hopefully that'll work out just fine. So first up is Mike O'Brien. I'm going to go ahead and enable the screen share here. Hold on just a second. And Mike is going to talk about how a daily practice of walking and making images on his iPhone has affected his photo skills. Kind of an interesting idea. And he'll talk a little bit more about what that is exactly. So Mike, when you are ready.
Okay, I hope you agree that it improved my photo skills. But we'll see. Yeah, so I can share my screen now?
It should be able to. Give it a try.
Okay. All right. But today being the Ides of March, I wanted to start with a reenactment that Eleanor and Vanna and I did at the Memorial to Victor Emmanuel in Rome in honor of the occasion. So every day I walk with our dog Fanny, and we live in the Overlook neighborhood, and it's kind of a regulation Portland neighborhood, a lot of little bungalows, nothing very fancy. And a couple of years ago when I got an iPhone, I thought that I would start using it to take photographs when I'm walking with her. I had tried doing it with a camera, but it's too hard to handle a leash in one hand and a camera in the other. Plus, a couple of times when I was photographing in front of people's houses with a camera, I got kind of eyeballed, like, why are you taking photographs of my house? And the iPhone is completely inconspicuous, so it seemed like something that was worth trying out. So we walk every day, and I photograph something that I find along the sidewalk. That's my zone that I'm looking for. So this is what I wanted to try to do. I'm a great one for kind of just being in my head and thinking about whatever I have to do, whatever I'm feeling guilty about. And the original goal of this exercise was to try to just let that quiet down, and to see what I could find in these daily walks that was beautiful. And I didn't really know what to expect when I started out, but you'll kind of see what I came up with. Because I have Fanny, and she's kind of tugging on the leash, I can't spend a lot of time. I have to see something, think, oh, okay, that's worth trying, and then use the phone and make the image. I really have like a few seconds. I would have more time to edit them, but then that would be kind of like, to me, a little bit counterproductive. So I try to keep the editing really simple. And my editing is geared toward knowing that most people will see these on a screen. So I'm trying to edit them so they'll look like I saw them when you see them on your screen. And I wanted it to be a regular habit, so do it every day. So that's the setup. And then I post.
Excuse me, Mike.
Yeah.
I think, are you thinking that you're showing us the full images?
Yeah.
We're
We're just seeing the thumbnails right now.
Oh, well, let me back up. It says I'm screen sharing. I'm screen sharing Keynote. Sharing is paused. Bring your shared window to the front.
I think you need to start the Keynote program.
Well, Keynote is running on the computer, Susan.
We were seeing your screen, Mike. It's just that we were seeing your whole presentation.
You know,
Yeah.
the thumbnails.
It's like a gallery view.
Now what do you see? Anything?
Now you've stopped screen sharing.
Nothing.
Okay, we'll go back to Zoom. Go back to share screen. I'm going to try sharing my desktop this time instead of sharing Keynote. Okay, now.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so my apologies. I clicked on Keynote instead of clicking on the desktop. And for some reason, it didn't want to share Keynote, so my apologies for that.
For future, Michael, for future reference, who is Brutus?
He was,
Brutus is Eleanor.
Okay,
I'm
now I know.
I'm Cassius.
Yeah, and we did this really fast because there were armed guards around, and I didn't want them to misunderstand the whole thing about pulling out knives. Anyway, okay, so I explained about the walk. This is what our neighborhood looks like. I explained about the practice, what I'm trying to do. It's mostly just to, I thought of it originally as like being a musician playing scales and just kind of getting comfortable with looking at things and making images. But there was a lot of bad news at the time with the president and all. And so I wanted to feel like I was contributing something beautiful on Facebook every day, in addition, you know, to all the other kind of bad news you'd see there. So this is an example of the post that I do every day. And that's not a lot of people, but people seem to enjoy them, so I'm glad about that. I got some inspiration from this book, Alexandra Horowitz's, where she writes about she walked around cities with other people to learn how they experience the city. So one was a musician. What are the sounds of the city? One was a blind person. How does the blind person experience it? One was a geologist. What are all these stones that you're seeing in buildings? Where do they come from? What do they mean?
Dogs.
So that's a terrific book, just to say. So here's an example of the kind of thing that I started doing. And I'm gonna give you a few here while I talk about this. You'll notice right away that I'm looking down. I'm not only looking down the sidewalk, but I'm kind of looking at what's growing on both sides of the sidewalk. It's hard I found to shoot up into the trees because I have to deal with the sky and all the wires that are in my neighborhood and stuff like that. Or maybe it's just me psychologically. I tend to just kind of look and see what's going on in the gardening. But I don't ever go into anybody's yard. This is the parking strip and what's right on the edge of somebody's front yard that I'm seeing when we're walking. And I started doing this, and I found right away that I was thinking about the audience. What I really wanted to do when I began this exercise was to figure out what I saw. But the thing about putting it on Facebook meant that to some degree, I'm seeing things and I'm thinking to myself, oh, people will like that. And that turned out to be kind of like the biggest hurdle I had to get over, to just trust my intuition and shoot what I saw. And I guess to some degree, my intuition likes eye candy, but I hope that's not the whole story. And I'll show you what I mean. So these I shot kind of spring through fall. And I realized in the fall that I'm starting to encounter or surface another rule that I hadn't really thought about. And that is, I had some kind of unspoken rule that it was okay to photograph things that were alive, that were blooming, that were in the prime of their life, or that were making vivid colors that were really appealing in the fall. And that I was staying away from ever photographing things that were dead or decaying, or going through that sort of decomposition part of life before the next spring comes along. I also kind of figured out that intuition is just an impulse. my intuition, it turns out, will never, ever explain itself. It will never, ever put up a fight. It will never argue. It will just say, oh, that looks interesting, or do that. It's just an impulse in my head. There is no thought associated with it. And so my editor side is really good at saying, oh, no, that won't work, or figure out all the reasons why that isn't a good image. So it's taken me a while to kind of just go along with the intuition and let that happen. I hope I'm doing better now than I was at the beginning. I think that's changed. And so I did start taking photographs of things that I wouldn't have before, they aren't really, these are just unique to my own personal intuition, I think. And I found that I liked them because I felt that they were more musical. I started to have the experience of looking at something like this and thinking about musical compositions in my head that I know that I'm familiar with, and somehow feeling like there's an analogy between seeing this way and pulling up music. And I think that that might be, for me anyway, that I don't critically think about music when I'm experiencing it. It really just kind of comes in and goes, straight into your heart. And I started playing around more with hard light like this. I realized I had a preference for overcast days where the light is really soft and the shadows are really open, because hard light is, for me, harder to get a composition that works. And once I started looking at things that were decaying, I realized there actually is a lot of beauty in it. The colors are softer and more subtle. There's not as much pattern. It's more chaotic and more complex. And so doesn't always work as a composition.
Michael, can I ask a question? Do you have like composition kind of rules as in your head or a checklist as you're taking these photographs?
Well, that's a good question, Janice. The only one that I have that I'm aware of having, and I'm surfacing these as I go along, but the only one I have that I'm aware of is I try to frame so that the edges are clean. Because I found that if I have something like in this image, if there's something bright sticking in at the edge, your eye will go to that. And I want you to look at the subject rather than something that's kind of sticking in at the edge. So when I frame, there's another example. I'm trying to create what I feels to me like the coherent image without any distractions. Does that make sense?
Huh?
And sometimes I can't always do it. So like this, in this photograph, there's some things going on at the edge that I sort of wish weren't there, but they're
Schmutz. Schmutz.
yeah, Vanna said schmutz. It's a good way of describing it.
I like the schmutz.
Yeah.
Well, I think sometimes the schmutz, yeah, makes things look real.
Mhm.
I also, Janice, try to shoot so that I'm not getting recognizable stuff in the background. Like one reason this background is blue is that's an automobile. And so a lot of times when I find something that is interesting to shoot, it's hard to do because there's like street stuff going on in the vicinity. But in this case, it kind of worked out because it offset the yellow color. And so I do edit these, but the biggest thing I'm doing in the editing, really two things. I'm making sure that edge is clean, like I talked about. And the other thing I'm doing is I'm thinking about, these are going to go on a screen. So I'm going to boost the contrast and what the Apple phone program calls, or Photos program calls, I think, brilliance. It's basically a contrast enhancement so that it will read on a screen. The other thing I think is that people don't look at these for very long on the screen, a few seconds probably. So it needs to kind of pop. Sometimes backgrounds work really well. Our neighborhood has a lot of walls and sidewalks and places where when you see something like this, there can be a really nice background as well as a distracting one. I got more comfortable with doing more complex compositions like this one. So this is a hydrangea, but there's really a lot going on here. And one reason this works, or at least I think it works, is because I'm using an iPhone 12 now, and I'm finding that the color gradations in the 12 are much better than they were in my iPhone 7 that I started out with originally. And so I can do more kind of subtle color gradations and it still works. Or at least I hope it works. I don't really know if it works. That's my thinking.
It works.
It works for you.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh no, these are gorgeous, Mike.
This is part of the reason I love these rainy, overcast days, is because with the overcast and the water, the colors just become so vivid. You just can almost shoot anything walking around the neighborhood and it's going to look good because of that quality. This is a spider web that has rain, stuck on it.
Michael, this is Giannis again. Do you have a rule about like moving things?
Oh no, I don't ever move things. Part of the idea, Giannis, was just to shoot what I encounter and don't fuss around. If I have a rule, is I have a few seconds to do this. Don't overthink it. And part of the reason for not overthinking is I don't want my editor to kick in. I want to try to trust my intuition. That's the whole point of what I'm trying to make progress doing here. Okay, so that's it.
I have a question for you, Michael. As a person who helps people with their photography, I'm often, this intuition thing I think is important, but I'm wanting to know for you personally, what did you perceive as the risk that would occur for not trusting your intuition?
Oh, that's a really good question, Ray. And for me personally, I started photographing back in the 60s. So I've accumulated a kind of a unspoken catalog of rules, like rules of thirds and all those kinds of things that we learned over the years. And they have a very unpleasant way of sort of popping up at the wrong moment. I know that they're well intended, but in some ways they're not helpful. They can become too much of a for me, a rigid framework. And by trusting my intuition, I don't argue with all those rules. I just set them aside. Does that make sense?
I'm asking more about like, why is that? And I'm not discounting that it's hard to make that trust leap. What I'm wondering is what we all perceive as what's the risk of doing that? We all feel like there's a risk, but I'm wondering for you, do you have an idea what that risk is?
Well, that people who see these images will say, think the lesser of them because they don't fit the rules.
Yeah.
And these are Ray, these are like little miniatures. I'm photographing things that are a few inches in size. Most people will go right by them, don't even notice them. And so to pull them out and say, here, pay attention to this, the risk to me is, well, why would you bother? I walk by that every day on the sidewalk. I don't pay any attention. Why is this important?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to you. It's like, I had a therapist once and I said, well, nobody's home because I was living alone at the time. She says, well, you're there. So in the same way, your photography is, it's yours to own. And so I think we all have trouble with this intuition thing. And that's why I'm questioning you about this, just to bring it up as a topic.
Well, my editor is great at shooting down my intuition. It's a little bit like a little soap bubble that just pops up in my head. And if I even look at it too hard, it goes away. And so I'm trying to have that intuition and trust it and not question it. And yeah, I guess that's just a selfish thing. You could go on for years using the rules and it's fine. But that's a kind of a discovery that I wanted to head towards with this practice.
Well done.
Yeah, Mike, on that note, it's interesting. You said intuition I'm paraphrasing, intuition doesn't really have an explanation. So often, we're asked to explain our photographic impulses. I think you've done a good job of it by saying that you felt rule bound, that you were limiting your creative potential by following these rules, which I think is a good thing. All of a sudden, I've just blipped my main point here. But yeah, so I think that
Never happens to me, Pat.
intuition is one of those things that you can't explain, as you said. You can't really articulate what's going on in your mind or in your visual field when this takes over. So I think it's I think it's just very liberating to do what you've done. And it shows in your work. When you were, feeling rule bound, it limited the quality of your images. And I think as your presentation progressed, I could see that you were being guided not by rules, but by your own, soul, your own vision, your own whatever word you want to use for that. So I think it's wonderful.
Thank you.
Mike,
The first landscape photographers I encountered in the 60s were people like Ansel Adams. And that planted in my head the idea that a landscape was heroic. It had to be a grand view. It had to be a moment in time that will never happen again. You had to be knocked over by it. And it took me a while to just kind of get out from under that one and think about, well, what else can a landscape be? So yeah, you guys probably don't have all these burdensome ideas in your head, but they've been hanging around in mine for a long time.
I'm a big fan of the little moments that you do with on our walk, and I've always appreciated this since you started doing it.
Thanks, Patrick.
Mike, you said something about other people. You were concerned other people might look at it and say, "Why is this important?" Because I walk right past it. I don't think you have to, or feel you should have to apologize for beauty. And what you're photographing, I mean, a lot of that stuff is truly beautiful. And whether somebody else considers, a small vignette or something of beauty important, it doesn't matter. I mean, it is beautiful, and I don't think you should, feel you have to apologize for doing that.
Yeah, Mike, Mike, can you hear me?
I can, Susan, yeah.
Okay, I think though you're discounting the fact that intuition comes from a huge store of knowledge and experience, all the things that you've done. It's just that when you're using your intuition, you're not real conscious of those things.
Or it isn't intuition.
So all that stuff that you've learned over the many years, you're now saying, I'm not gonna worry about it. I'm just gonna let it flow.
Yeah, Susan, I hope that's true.
Oh, well, that's intuition. Whether or not it works, that's a different question.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're the sum total of our experiences and our life's paths. And if we can be self-aware enough to pay attention to that day by day, then we're pretty lucky.
I think also you can go by all the rules and think everything perfectly through, but you might come up with some perfect, rather boring photographs. You want the exciting ones, not the perfect ones.
Right.
Making any sense?
I think the analogy in music is the person whose playing is so technically perfect but lacks any feeling. The technical perfection doesn't mean anything if there's nothing behind it, and the feeling is far more important.
Exactly. Yeah. You're not looking for perfection, you're looking for beauty.
Mm-hmm. I have one more question. So you must live in a virtual Garden of Eden neighborhood.
No.
No, Pat, that's the thing. I live in Overlook. It's a working class neighborhood. It is changing because we're only 2 blocks from Adidas and they've hired lots of people. And so there's a lot of improvement happening in the neighborhood, upgrading houses and stuff like that, and landscaping. But for the most part, it's a working class neighborhood. If I go to neighborhoods like Laurelhurst, I think there way more potential there for this kind of stuff than in my neighborhood. And the reason I'm saying that is I think that what you find in these images, you could find in any Portland neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Mike,
Michael,
can I ask you put up one of the images? Would you mind sharing your screen and putting up that one that had a hydrangea in it?
If I can do this right, yeah.
Yeah, that was a beauty.
Yeah, that one, I think.
Third, 26, was it?
Yeah.
That one?
Yeah. First of all, it's amazing what you're doing with an iPhone. I mean, it's just, it's blowing me away. But, you know, I love this image. And to me, you know, what you're able to do in composing the light and the color, it's a wonderful light that you've got, you know, on this scene. And the way you've composed the color with the black of the decaying hydrangea and the little leaflets, you know, sort of below the maple leaves, it's really a wonderful image. And that's what I really see in your evolution, is your ability to compose the light and the color in really, really interesting ways.
Yeah, thanks, Doug.
Oh, go ahead, Mike, but I wanted to see the very next image too, which was one of my favorites.
Oh, let's see if I can do that. That one?
Yeah, Gord, just so, it looks like a painting. It's just so beautiful.
I wanted to see that too. Yeah, you've broken all the rules. It's really, really pretty.
Thanks.
So beautiful.
So this is Randy. Randy and Jim, we're watching, but not torturing you guys with having to look at us eat dinner. And I just wanted to say, Mike, that we love your photos. And also, I'm just so impressed with the fact that every time you show something, whether it's at one of the exhibits or in front of, you know, the group like tonight, you're always doing something different. And every time you do something different, it's always magnificent. So just kudos to you.
Thank you, Randy. That's very kind of you.
Got a question, Mike. These are beautiful images, and I enjoy following you on Facebook, but do you ever look at them and want to go back with a regular camera and retake those pictures, or are you satisfied with the iPhone?
Well, the regular camera has a lot of capabilities that the iPhone doesn't have. I'll say that right off. But I tend to think of this thing with the iPhone as it's just its own thing. What can I do with a dog and an iPhone and a neighborhood? What can I get out of that? And so I don't do that. I'm going to go down to the beach at the end of the month, and Mike Osborne said he would come too, and we're going to go take pictures of Hug Point and the rocks and stuff. And we'll definitely use the big cameras and the tripods, and you know, that'll just be a experience in and of itself that's different from this. And it'll make sense to use the big camera then, but now I don't think.
Do you ever print these at all?
Yes, I have printed them. And when I print them, I have to edit them a little bit. I mentioned earlier that I edit these to be seen on a screen, and so I'm bumping up the contrast so they'll read, you know. But on the paper, I have to kind of back off from that to get the print to look right.
So are you editing them on the computer, or on the iPhone, and are you shooting them in RAW on your iPhone?
I do shoot them in RAW. I just edit them on the Apple Photos program. So, you know, when you have your phone, you open up a image in Photos, there's the word edit up at the top, and you hit that. And then you have a series of color and sort of cropping, framing adjustments, and some filters that if you want to add filter stuff on, you can. It's pretty basic editing, but for the purposes of getting these on a screen and not spending a lot of time at it, it works fine. If I take something and put it on the computer and I start looking at it in Lightroom, that's a whole more sort of elaborate process to go through. So I've shied away from doing that. Does that make sense?
Mike, quick question about the editing. So you edit on your iPhone?
Yeah.
I mean, we're probably the same age, but boy, kudos to you, because I can't see that tiny screen. So I'm wondering how you accomplish that.
The iPhone Pro Max. So this is the big iPhone. Then it has the little one, and I could not work.
Oh, so that's much bigger then. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I wondered.
It's kind of like a mini iPad more than a phone.
Oh, okay. That makes sense then.
It's a phablet.
So Michael, do you think the whole, I'm going to get back to this intuition thing. In some ways, do you think maybe the whole iPhone helps you get there? And I had a friend once who had all this great camera gear, but he also owned a Yashica twin lens $100 camera. And he took some of his best pictures with them because he was kind of not trying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's really true, Ray. That when you sort of get used to the iPhone and how it works, and you can do it in one hand. I got the dog in one hand, and I got the phone in one hand. I can't make it complicated. It's not possible. And so it's freeing in that way.
Yeah, Ray. My first camera was a used roller cord that tended to pull the film sideways a little bit. And when I moved to something with interchangeable lenses, the quality of my work went down because I was futzing with technology.
Yeah, sometimes it's freeing to like think, oh, this doesn't really count. I'm just having fun here.
Yeah.
And that lets go of some of that intuition stuff you were talking about, or lets you connect with it, I think.
Yeah.
I want to share something that Sharon O'Keefe taught me in one of the class. She remarked that every image is a selfie.
Mm-hmm.
And so it reflects the photographer.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, with that thought, I think we're gonna need to move on. Mike, thank you very much. That was very well done. Nice presentation.
Beautiful.
So next up, we've got Pat Rose. Pat is a current board member and a longtime Instagram boss for PPF, which we're very grateful for. And she's going to talk this evening about her street images and her approach to photographing people in public places. So Pat, take it away.
Thank you, Doug. I'll share my screen here while I'm doing that, Mike. That was just so wonderful. I thoroughly enjoyed that. And I have a surprise in my presentation for both you and Vanna, and you'll know it when you see it.
Okay.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So you should just see the title page and black background. Is that right?
Yeah, looks good.
Okay, so thank you everybody for coming to this PPF meeting. Those of you who know me know I've dabbled in all sorts of things. I've not really settled on my my purpose in life yet, as it were. I've tried landscapes. I've tried portraiture. I've tried botanical more recently during COVID, and I've done some street photography. So, I just took a workshop Saturday that's kind of got me enamored with doing some long exposure work as well. So I'm kind of, not really know what I don't really know what I want to do when I grow up, basically. So I've tried all sorts of things. And each of these types of photography that I've done rely on a different set of skills. And they all have their challenges, of course. But in many ways, I find street photography to be the most challenging. So today, that's what I'm going to focus on is for me, the most challenging type of photography that I've tried. Reality is always extraordinary. The great documentary photographer, Mary Ellen Mark, knew what she was talking about because that was her bread and butter. She ventured out into the streets with a purpose, and she came up with some compelling work. Just so you know, I'm going to pepper my presentation with some, some what I think of as notable quotes from some very celebrated street and documentary photographers. So the streets can provide a lot of inspiration, and it's a very fascinating and very difficult kind of photography. First, you got to scout out a place. When you find your location, you have to, find an opportunity, and you've got to be ready to wield your camera on the spur of the moment. And so you need to know your equipment pretty well. Portland, of course, is a great city to get started with street photography, or to continue it if you guys are already doing a lot of street photography. This, I should tell you that this was hang on just a second. I'm going to do something real quick here. This was, I was wandering around downtown with my husband, and we came upon this wedding video being shot. And they pulled out all the stops. They hired the unicyclist to, work with this little story that they were creating. And of course, naturally, a crowd was assembling, and I was among the crowd. So they did this a little procession many times, I guess, ostensibly to get it perfect. And I just caught a few moments of that. So this one of my first, my early street photographs, which I found to be quintessentially Portland.
Pat, on that last one, did you have it together to get that exotic magazine in the corner and not cut that out?
Where's the exotic magazine? You see something that I wasn't aware of, Mike?
In the top left corner.
Top left.
What does it say?
Oh,
Like in the window.
No, yeah, I knew that. Yeah, no, of course I didn't see a lot of this. And this is so interesting about this kind of work is you see things when you're doing post-production that you don't really notice at the time. So that's, yeah, good
Well
eye.
done.
Yeah, so that's part of the reason why I wanted to keep that, the skyline there. Some people might find that's a little bit distracting, but that was one of the reasons why I wanted to keep that there, because it spoke to the Portland scene. Whereas if I just cropped it down to the top of the building of Keep Portland Weird, it would not have had the same feel to me.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of street photography is, just looking out for good backdrops. So this is downtown Portland. I can't even remember where. I think it's near the parks. I don't know how to explain where it is. I'm still not good at.
And I think that's South Park. That's the North Park blocks. And honestly, right now, it's been, you shot it at a great time because it has deteriorated.
Really? Yeah. So this is quite a few years ago. And 2018, I think, maybe 17. Can't remember exactly. But so I found this beautiful building. And this is one type of thing you can try to do is just to stake out a spot, find an interesting background, and then just wait. So that whole waiting strategy is a good one with street photography. So people were walking, as I was across the street, obviously, just waiting, very anonymous. Nobody knew I was there, waiting for interesting people to walk by. And I shot several people, but this little group I found was perfect for this background. The lady with her striped shirt and the kid with her striped shirt, and they were just so engaged in being a family and totally oblivious to me. The little balloons just sort of made it look like a party that happened. I read something recently where street photography, somebody said street photos are like little one-act plays, which I found pretty interesting. To me, this is like a little one-act play. In street photography, it's good to look out for different perspectives. For example, looking down is a good technique to try to employ. So I live in the South Waterfront, and I'm standing on top of the bridge there across from the funicular, what do they call that? The trolley that goes up to OHSU, the tram that goes up to OHSU. So I'm standing up on top looking down, and I'm just struck by the graphics of the street and finding that very interesting. All I needed was the human element, which I find to be an integral part of street photography. You have to have the human element. So I waited for some interesting specimen to come along, and this bicyclist fit the bill. So the markings and graphics of the street can provide a lot of interest, I think. And Portland, of course, is no exception in urban environments to offer that.
Now, Pat, when you were photographing that, like, do you have any kind of we were talking about composition rules and things like that. Do you have like rules about where you want the person to be? Like, for example, that cyclist, you chose him to be what, about a third of the way in?
Well, yeah, I do, and I'll talk about that in a minute. I really do try to pay attention to compositional elements. And Mike O'Brien, you did such a great job of discounting that, but it's, as you know, I'm sure yourself, it's hard to do that, hard to just sort of throw away those rules. So I'm waiting for the right moment. Now this is a little different, Giannis, because there's a stop sign there. That guy had to stop. So there's no way this guy was going to be anywhere else. If he stopped, he was going to stop there. So that helped.
And so you made it a conscious decision to use a kind of a slower shutter speed so that he wouldn't be a blur, or he wouldn't be a blur.
Yeah, well, I use a fast shutter speed to make sure he's not a blur. Like in this one, I took several shots of them crossing, walking across the frame, but I like this one best. So yeah, I'm very conscious of that, Mike, especially in post. I mean, Janice, yeah, thank you for that question. Now, street photography, does it have to be outdoors or can it be indoors? I think there are no rules. So another perspective that I find interesting is looking up. And this is the OHSU Dental School.
Oh.
I don't know if you've been there, but they've got this beautiful atrium with all this amazing lighting. It's all LED lighting that is calculated to address seasonal, is it called seasonal affective disorder?
Yeah.
For people who suffer from that. So it's to help the students to study in an environment that, helps them with their moods, that sort of thing. But they just did a beautiful job. And I just had a subject, there was a subject walking up on the catwalk there. There were people just going up and down and up and down. So I got this single image here of a person, which I thought was compelling enough to shoot. We call that one Urban Jungle. Okay, another quote from the so-called father of street photography, Henri Cartier-Bresson, who was all about the decisive moment. Somebody else mentioned that recently. I think it was you, Bruce, about a moment that, the moment, once you miss it, it is gone forever. And I find that so intriguing that what we photograph is something that can never theoretically be repeated in all of eternity and never was seen before. It's one moment, a blink of an eye that we see, that we catch. So this ephemeral, spontaneous moment, he considered the essence of photography, or street photography, which he dealt in mostly. So speaking of that one little moment, one thing about street photography is it can be a lot. It's like police work. It can be a lot of nothing, a lot of boredom, and then all of a sudden there's action. You've got to be ready. You need luck. Got to be on the lookout, and you got to keep your camera at the ready as well. So I was walking along Hawthorne Street next to Powell's Books, just sort of, daydreaming, I suppose. And I looked over and I saw this woman standing in the window. And I thought, oh my God, how could I be so lucky? The Powell's Books sign the shadow was reflecting, was casting a shadow on her back as she was reading this book. So this was shot on the fly. I was lucky to get it. It's a little blurry, but that's okay. I got this image. I call this image a good read. Another decisive moment. Again, Giannis, this comes back to the compositional elements of street photography. I was sitting with my husband at the table across from this woman. She was so happily engaged in her beer and her iPhone. She didn't pay a hoot of attention to me. And I looked over and I saw my husband drinking his beer in the shadows. And I thought, oh my God, look how the sun is casting these great shadows. So I just reached down and got my camera and got a quick snap of this. This is the only shot I took. And because I didn't want her to I didn't want to interfere with, and didn't want to interrupt her silent reverie there with herself. So I quickly got it and moved on. But this is one of the things about street photography, that there's a big topic of conversation. Should the street photographer be the unobserved observer? In other words, do you catch these candid moments, these decisive moments that will never happen again when your subjects are totally oblivious to your presence? And I think there's a lot to that. Now, later on, I'll talk about street portraiture, which I think is something a little different. But as far as street photography goes, I think, it's the essence, the sort of pure form of street photography is to be the unobserved observer.
But Pat, compliments to you on the composition on this thing. Like going back to Michael's thing about like the edges and stuff. I mean, look at, you got your husband's bottle on the right. Yeah. You've got the whole sign, better beer for the greater good, all the way across. I mean, better isn't half cut off or anything. I mean, and you even got a little bit of a meter in there for that street kind of effect. I mean, it's like this perfect composition.
Thank you, Giannis. That's very kind. This actually was selected at the Black Box Gallery in Portland for their Shadow and Light exhibition.
Yeah.
So I guess that guy thought so too, Giannis. Thank you. Okay, moving along. I'm going to move along a little more quickly here. So another decisive moment. This is at the Union, is it called Union Station in Portland?
Yeah.
Yeah, with the train station there. So I was in there and they have this beautiful shiny floor. So, you know, I was taking pictures of people as they were going into this beam of light. There's beautiful light in that building. And you know, this one, I think speaks to the whole notion of street photography, that if you're kind of a shy person who's afraid of people seeing you take pictures, it's sometimes a good idea to shoot from a distance or shoot down or up or away from the people. So, you know, sometimes it might be a sneaky way to do that, but to keep people from being so, you know, aware of your presence. And, you know, if you're shy and don't like approaching strangers in public, then this kind of street photography might be your cup of tea. So it's a few issues about street photography. You know, there's a question too of should it be black and white or is color okay? Well, I think they're both okay. There are no rules, but I prefer black and white because it focuses on, you know, what I want it to focus on. And the other thing is, should people be in the frame? Is street photography necessarily, you know, is it a requirement to have people? Well, I don't think it has to, but I think there has to be a suggestion of people. And then I think it's probably valid, you know, and that's certainly an open, you know, topic of discussion for people engaged in street photography. Another quote from another celebrated street photographer, Gary Winogrand: "No one moment is most important. Any moment can be something." So I can't decide if he's agreeing with Cartier-Bresson or if he's disagreeing with him. Cartier-Bresson wanted the decisive moment. Gary Winogrand apparently was all about any moment could be something. You just have to find it. So, let's see, I think I've got the, yeah, so I think of my, my outings as kind of walkabouts. And what I find, when I find a subject that I like, I just kind of stick to it. Now, one thing is kids, children. A lot of people think, oh my gosh, children should be off limits. Well, you know, I think children are people too. And as long as you're being respectful and being a little extra sensitive, probably, then kids are, you know, part of street life. And, you know, I think that's fair to represent them as well in this genre. And as a woman, I'm probably, you know, in a lot better position to be able to do this than a man might be. So you know, to me, a couple of rules of thumb: if parents are around, either ask them or make them very aware that you're there doing what you're doing, so you don't look like you're sneaking pictures, that sort of thing. But I love how kids engage with the camera. And these days, you know, kids are just oblivious to cameras because they have a camera, you know, put it, you know, poking in their face their whole lives. And, you know, they just start tuning it out, I think. So with kids, all sorts of things can happen. I was walking along Hawthorne Street again, which I find a very fertile ground for street photography. And I was interested in this little trio, the dad with the dog and the kid. And I got my camera up ready to shoot. And this kid noticed me right away. And he just wanted to play for the camera. He was a regular ham. And it just, to me, got this perfect little moment of his life and my life. And I just love it.
But Pat, you know what makes this picture work for me actually is that if you can go back one is, I mean, I assumed it was his grandfather in a way because of that hand.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. Actually, you're right, Ray. I don't really know. It just looked like a little family to me. It might have been his grandfather. You're right.
But I mean, the fact that the hand is there makes that picture everything to me, because it's then I have this story in my head about the grandfather's out with his grandson, but otherwise it'd just be a kid with a dog. It wouldn't be quite as effective. So the fact that you've got that hand back there is what makes that one work, in my opinion.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so it's that whole thing about a little one-act play. You know, I think of street photography as telling little, being little vignettes, telling little stories. So
Ed,
yeah, that's,
am I right in thinking that his last 3 fingers have been cut off?
oh, he's got, no, I think he's just
Curved
holding those fingers in. Anyway, kids, I'm going to move along here because I see I'm moving rather slowly. Kids again in action. This is Director's Park. A bunch of kids were there, a bunch of parents, families, mostly mothers and their kids were out for an afternoon. I didn't feel too worried about, taking some shots. So kids in action, oblivious to the camera. And I was just caught how this teacher's fountain ball there in Director's Park just kind of worked with this little vignette. Kids in solitude, also in Director Park. This kid was in his own little world. I just loved all the geometry of this picture, the chairs and the shadows and that little kid in his little silent world. I was down in Pioneer Place, Pioneer Plaza there where the Max goes by. And I was just walking up and down waiting for the Max train to come along, looking for opportunities. And I caught this little girl who was totally curious about me. So she was the perfect subject. I snapped a couple shots of her just engrossed in what I was doing. The mother next to her is oblivious. So I just love kids and how they can be such a great, source. Erwin Elliott, another documentary photographer, transplant from Europe, I think. You can find pictures anywhere. It's simply a matter of noticing things and organizing them. So I think street photography there are all sorts of subjects that can be valid for street photography. There are things in the urban landscape that, that I think, contain the suggestions of people, like mannequins, I found pretty intriguing. So looking in storefront windows is a good way to get some images. I think there are no hard rules in street photography. I think the only thing that matters is it worth photographing? So this was in the evening, you can tell by the lights, and I just love the sort of noir effect of this, image here, this storefront display. Another mannequin looking up, trying to play with the shadows and lights, very noir. Mannequin with the hats, with the fedoras, like just to me were reminiscent of the 40s and that kind of noir Hollywood thing. So any objects in the streets can be interesting to photograph. Again, Cartier-Bresson, in photography, the smallest things can be a great subject. The little human detail can become a leitmotif. Love that quote. I think it speaks to what this genre is all about. To be on the lookout for everyday activities, just find something interesting and then just figure out a way to frame your findings. OHSU dental school again, looking down from above was easy because there's so many catwalks there, you can do it. I just like the composition here with these tables. And I've always, you can study these pictures, the print is sometimes good, but I just always loved her t-shirt, Wild at Heart. And here she is, a dental school student, studying like crazy, all by herself. Storefront again, this little restaurant downtown, a little bar downtown, Pepe de Le Moco. I just thought that was a little slice of life there, slice of this woman's life. Very noirish again. Inside La Grassa, the Italian food restaurant, the pasta restaurant. I was just struck by all the faces. The face on the outside of the building off to the left, the Brigitte Bardot face, the faces of the people, the woman in the bottom right looking very frightened, gave me this sort of a Hollywood noir feel that I found captivating. Voodoo Donuts, again, this whole thing of like street photos are like little one-act plays. I just love the texture of this building, and then how the clothing on these people just picked up on that, the plaids, and just the little conversations everybody was having with each other. Again, oblivious to me, except maybe for the woman in the very front of the line who may have seen me and decided she was going to be shy. But she had her own little story too. So I felt this was a photo that, you know, I should take, and I really liked how it turned out. The magic is in the whole, the magic is in the pictures. Sort of a hipster gal. While I was waiting for the train to come along, she was waiting too. I like the grunginess of this picture. Moving along, Diane Arbus, one of the great street photographers ever. My favorite thing is to go where I've never been. So traveling, I don't take too many street photos when I'm traveling, but because, you know, I'm busy doing other things. Hang on. Let's see how I'm doing here for time. Oh my goodness, I'm really moving along. I better go fast here if we're going to get any discussion in. So these are just these are shots from Union Square in New York. One good thing about, one good strategy of street photography is to go to one place and just hang out. So I hung out at Union Square and just took a bunch of pictures. I'm just going to move along faster here now. I think everything I needed to say about street photography has been said, so I'll just kind of go through these. I love this group that were engaged in conversation, these young people. It's just, this is Grand Central Terminal using, I think, a 1 second shutter speed to get the ghosting effect on this one. And I was happy that another little surprise was this woman who was who just stood still, so she didn't move, and she was carrying this bag with the New York sign on it. And I just was so lucky to get that. So grateful that she was there. Everybody else sort of moving, hustling and bustling.
Was that handheld, or were you sitting it on a banister up above?
I was sitting it on a banister, yes. There's in that terminal, you go up, you see the stairs in the background, but there's some stairs behind me too, and I'm actually up. And I set my camera on one of the railings and set it for a second and got this. So yeah, Rita, you were at Mark Kergel's long exposure photography class too, and then we were talking about this ghosting effect. It really works.
It's wonderful that you have the woman in the foreground with the actual location, and she's
Yeah.
so sharp, but then there's something else going on around her. That's a really compelling image, Pat.
Thanks, Rita.
Pat, how much post do you do on your images?
I do some. I'm not a newspaper photographer, so I don't just, you know, I work on mine. I don't do a whole lot, but the conversion to black and white is, you know, takes some doing because I want to get the black and white to my liking. So yeah, the usual things. I don't take out a bunch of stuff or anything like that, but I do work on, you know, contrast and dodging and burning and all that stuff. The world makes up my pictures, not me. Lee Friedlander, another famous in the vein of he was a contemporary of Arbus and I think Gary Winogrand too. This is in Strasbourg. So the world makes up my pictures, not me. Traveling is a great way to get pictures. It makes it interesting because it's so different. So automatically you've got some, it's like looking at old pictures, so different from our own experience that they become intriguing right off the bat. This was a little cafe, little alleyway, caught this bicyclist coming up. Strasbourg is a fabulous city. If you ever get the opportunity to go there, I would say go. Strasbourg again, I was intrigued by this beautiful mansion, and then I'll have to zoom in because you don't have the print to look at, but these little these monks or clerics or whatever they were walking along, I just thought made this picture. And again, I saw them coming from the distance, so I waited until they got into the frame. Some French girls enjoying their aperitif. The ubiquitous baguette on the back of a bicycle. When someone becomes aware of the camera, it becomes a very different picture. So said Robert Frank, the famous Robert Frank, who knew what he was talking about. So that brings up street portraiture as opposed to just, the unobserved observer. I really enjoy this kind of street photography. And so here, this is in Linz, so this is still overseas. My mother's from Austria, so I go to Linz, her hometown, regularly. It's been since before the pandemic now, but I'll go again as soon as I can. This was a street musician in Linz, Austria. And I just listened to him a while, struck a conversation with him, befriended him, asked him to pose for me. He obliged, he gave me this wonderful shot, and I got his address and I sent him this image. He's a Slovakian, the Slovak Republic, and we just had this little, international moment together as two foreigners in a strange land. When I go to Austria, I go to my grandparents' gravesite to tend to the grave sites. And I'm still on the lookout when I'm there. This is a stonemason, who takes care of the gravestones. And I saw him out there. I approached him, talked to him a little bit, asked him if he'd oblige me with a photo. He did. So he got a picture of himself too.
Hey, Pat.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you about a 2-minute warning, okay?
Okay. All right. Thank you, Doug. I'm sorry I'm talking too much.
Not at all. No, it's fine.
Now, so I'm going to go quickly through the rest of these. Are not many more. So Mike and Vanna, oh my God. This was in 2017 at the Women's March. Do you remember?
Right. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't know you two then. I wasn't in PPF. And you just, and when I was preparing this, I hadn't looked at these pictures in a long time. When I was preparing this, I thought, oh my God, that looks so familiar. That guy looks so familiar. That's you and Vanna.
And that's Eleanor on the side. Our
Who's
daughter.
Eleanor?
The one on the far left, that's Eleanor. She was
Your daughter?
She was in the photograph I shared from Rome of the assassination.
Oh. That's your daughter, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
We were
And
all-
look how cute Vanna looks peeking over her sign. I just was amazed at this.
It's a classic photo, Pat.
Anyway, so events are good, to just sort of pop up at events. It's a great place to get street portraits.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, I love that.
And so I was amazed, of course, all these signs and all these people, everybody happy and obliging, and you didn't have to ask twice to get a picture. Everybody just posed.
Yeah.
The little girl, fight like a girl. These two Mennonite women, the one Mennonite women, Portland Mennonites, the one Mennonites was great.
With their pussy hats.
Yeah, the pussy hats. Real men and presidents respect women. I don't know if you guys remember, I'm sure you remember 2017, we had a new president and people were really into this public gathering. Couple sisters with one of them with a pussy hat. Everybody happy. This very determined activist take action. They thought they could bury us. They didn't know we were seeds. The woman with her feminist t-shirt. Everybody happy to be there. Going back to Ouija, I found this quote from the book I'm reading. To me, a photograph is a page from life. Ouija, otherwise known as Arthur Fellig from New York. This was the 2017 solar eclipse, another event that I found. What was that?
That was Vanna laughing.
That's, yeah.
Oh, okay. So those glasses, of course, and I just got several good shots of people. This just looked like something out of a 40s sci-fi movie.
Bomb test.
Yeah. These two women, they were sisters. I don't really know. I didn't talk to them. I just got them looking. This image was actually, I was really proud of the fact that this image was selected by Amy Arbus, Diane Arbus's daughter, to appear in a portrait. I don't know exactly what it was, as black and white or something exhibit. So Amy Arbus picked the twins because if you're familiar with Diane Arbus, she liked to shoot the twins are very famous.
So Pat, we're kind of there time-wise, so.
Yeah, this is the second to the last. So here's the photographer at the solar eclipse getting the little eclipse things in the shadows on the street. And I want to just leave you with this quote. It's an illusion that photos are made with the camera. They're made with the eye, the heart, and the head. Another wonderful quote by Henri Cartier-Bresson. So yeah, sorry I hogged up all the time. No chance for discussion, but I hope you enjoyed.
Pat, that was really well done. Thank you very much.
Pat, those are brilliant pictures. Absolutely.
Thank you, Ray.
Those are all classics.
Thank you.
So we're going to hear from Bruce Leonard next, and he's going to talk about his astrophotography, a little bit about how modern cameras and post-processing technique has made the night sky more accessible to photographers. So Bruce, if you're ready, take it away.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, let's see if we can do this. Oh, this is different. Is that working?
Oh, look at that.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah.
okay, I heard that. Yeah, so what I've got to show is quite a bit different this evening. But I really enjoy the night photography and stargazing, so to speak. Last month's speaker, Andrew Greenhill's presentation really resonated with me. I don't know if he's with us tonight, but it really resonated. And although he was kind of into out of focus, letting loose, and actually I think Mike's is similar, of kind of letting loose and going with your intuition and your feelings. And I enjoy being out in the night sky and the isolation and the perspective of where we are here and the stars and the galaxy and on beyond, and the perspective. And after, a long career of a high stress job with overload of responsibilities, it's very peaceful for me, and I really enjoy it. So this is my vision. It's in focus, hopefully, but it's quite different than the rest of you guys. Anyways, this is Emerald Lodge up in Alberta, BC, or Alberta, Canada. And everything I've got here is taken in the last year. This, when I flew out, I flew up to Calgary, and the pandemic was just beginning. So this is just about exactly a year ago. And I remember landing at the Calgary airport, and you had to go through little customs. And there was a new question on there is, have you been to Wuhan, China recently? So clicked no, thought that was funny, but the world's changed since then. So now we can't even go to Canada. Anyways, this is a stack of about 15 images blended together to reduce noise in the stars, as well as get the lodge not overexposed. So that's what's going on here. Let's see if this works.
It's like a Christmas card.
Okay, there we go. This is Bow Lodge, it's called, or Bow Bridge, excuse me. And this is, once again, about 15 images of the sky, and the foreground is focus stacked, so it's in focus. It's kind of a project, but it's beautiful up there, about 20 below zero, and had a wonderful night out there. It's beautiful.
So Bruce, how long does it take you to shoot the night sky to get the?
Well, this one was an all-night project. It's a blend of blue hour and before it got dark, and then take a little break, come back, leave the camera there, and go back to the car, warm up, and then take about 15 shots of the sky.
I see.
And those are stacked in a little free software called Sequitur. So, and then all blended together. So it's a little bit of a project.
Yeah, beautiful results.
I was going to show you. Yeah, here, if I can do this. This is me smiling at the end of the day. That's how I looked, frozen to death.
Oh, we don't see it.
Oh, you don't see it. Oh, okay. Well, try to flip over. Anyway, and this is the following morning as the sun was coming up. And can you see this okay?
Yes.
Okay, this was something new to me. They call them frost flowers. And these in the foreground, and you probably can't see it close enough, but in the foreground, the ice forms these, almost looks like flowers. And once again, this is focus stacked to get those sharp, but I don't know if the screen's big enough to see it that way. But there, is that better?
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Now it's working. So yeah, it's a beautiful place. And this is what I really was after. This is Abraham Lake up there in Alberta. And the methane gas, there's methane gas comes from the decomposing plants under the lake. The lake is frozen solid, and they come up and create these ice bubbles, which I was kind of fascinated with. This one was a real challenge. This place, for whatever reason, the wind, it's always incredibly windy there, and it was blowing probably 40 miles an hour. And I kneeled down on the lake, set up, and took my photo bag off, and it started to blow away. Everything in my bag. It weighed about 20 pounds, and there it goes. So I had to grab it in a hurry. But if you don't hang on to everything, it's going to be gone. Just really windy, but you don't see that in the picture. Beautiful place.
Amazing.
Swamp bubbles.
Okay, this is something different. This is a little old schoolhouse over by Duffer, Oregon. And that's in the middle up in the stars. That's Polaris, North Star. And the schoolhouse almost points due north, not quite. And this is about a 35-minute exposure. Kind of funny. It's out on this little dirt road, Roberts Mountain Road, it's called, and Roberts Market Road. But I had about 30 minutes in, and a car went by and wrecked the picture.
Oh.
Had to do it again. But those red lights on the horizon, those are all the windmills or wind turbines we have now.
Oh,
So first I thought, oh my God, I hate those, and then I left them in there. It's what's going on now out in the gorge. Any questions along the way here? I don't have all that many pictures.
so did you say a 30-minute exposure?
35 minutes.
35 minutes. Yeah,
Yeah.
wow.
Bruce, how do you figure that out?
I don't make a commission, but in PhotoPills, if you go to exposure and you can calculate what it would be, and then you can change your time, and it'll give you the formula for what your exposure should be. So I can't recall, it lowers, normally, rough idea would be, to take the night sky, maybe 6400 ISO, f2.8 for 20 or 30 seconds. So you convert that into 35 minutes, and it lowers your ISO down to about 100 and your f-stop back up to about f8. I'm just guessing, somewhere in there, but it calculates it for you. So, but
Yeah.
you can fix yourself at the same time. So I kind of know the basic exposure for night sky, and you can just convert that into time. So this is 35 minutes. That's how far, the Earth rotates about 15 degrees an hour. So that's only about 7 degrees of rotation. So the longer you go, the crazier it gets.
So Bruce, this is one exposure?
Yes.
Good for you.
So
Yeah.
Bruce, when you do the stars where they're static, and you say you stacked a lot of pictures to reduce noise, how do you get the stars to register properly? Because they're moving as you're taking that series, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's what the software does, is it realigns the stars together back into spots.
Okay.
And then the noise, because the noise is random. And so when you stack the different pictures, the noise kind of disappears, but it puts the stars back together. The problem then you have is that there's motion in the ground. So you have to blend a foreground image together with that. So it makes a challenge.
I like the way you have, oh, I'm on mute. I like the way you have the Polaris is totally sharp and centered at the center of the star trails.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty easy to find Polaris. It's not quite dead center, not that it would matter, over the schoolhouse, because I wanted to be able to see through the schoolhouse.
Oh, right. Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, there we go. So this is another angle. Put a couple lights inside the schoolhouse, and there's the Milky Way going over.
So you went in there and added lights?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Couple lume cubes.
Yeah, cool.
Just to kind of give it a little illumination.
Yeah, very effective.
So another interesting thing, I was out there and started seeing, let's see if it's going to do it. These streaks up there, I couldn't figure out what was going on. I looked at a picture and I had you get these satellites shooting through your picture. This is, probably about 10 stacked together, but I looked at a picture, I saw it, and then I did another one, and it was there, look what appeared to be the same place. But what this is Elon Musk has this satellite caravan thing. And these are all the stinking satellites going across the sky, all within about 10 minutes.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I put them together just to see, but it's kind of fascinating. So, on one side you've got wind turbines, and now we have space pollution.
Traffic jam.
Stinking satellites going along. But yeah,
Space
you can count the number of them here if you look closely, but one after another.
Wow.
Call it a caravan. I don't know what they're all doing up there, but
I've heard that they're driving astronomers crazy.
yeah. I go, what are these things?
And there's a debate, like, does he own the sky? Is this free real estate or something?
Well, yeah, he's got his Tesla running around this, shooting around the sun. It's kind of crazy. It's starting to get all kinds of junk up there. But I just thought that was kind of interesting. So most recently, I took a little trip down to the Southern Oregon coast. And boy, it's a totally different environment down there. It's clear skies and warm and sunny compared to up here. But this is in Bandon, Oregon. This is, it's called Wizard's Hat. And you can kind of see that, but sunset there. So no stars in this picture. It's funny, after looking at your pictures, Mike, I realize I don't have many plants in my pictures. And so this little series was down there, and I can't remember the name of this spot, but unless maybe it's, oh, I take it back. This is, I think that is Wizard's Hat still, but yeah, this is Milky Way there. There's some lights over there, town. I can't remember what town that is. It might be a little end of Bandon, but lots of star pictures here. This one is Secret Beach, I believe. And this is a real pretty place for taking pictures, and they get nice clear skies down there. Just to the left of the Milky Way is Jupiter, and I think Saturn is just to the left of that, if I recall correctly.
Bruce, on the previous photograph, like there were some like light rings on the shoot.
Saved by the Bell.
Yeah. There's some light rings. What's causing that light ring? Is that a lens issue?
I don't know. I don't see it. It might be a zoom issue. Well, maybe I do a little bit. I don't know.
I've seen that on some of my lenses. Will get that that kind of light ring, and I was trying to figure out like how to get rid of that.
Huh. I hadn't noticed it, but I do see it now. I don't know if that's, I don't know. I've heard somebody else talk about that once, and I can't recall what the solution was. If I figure that out, I'll let you know.
Yeah, please do.
Huh. Not here. Must be some sort of reflection or something from, there was a little bit of light.
What lens was that you were using? Was that like a, like a 14 lens or something like that?
Yeah, exactly. It's a Sigma 14 millimeter f1.8.
I always wondered if that big domed lens, was reflecting or refracting light because it's so domed, that lead lens.
Yeah, it's really convex. I don't know. Most all these pictures are taken with that same lens, and I don't see it in the other ones, but I do see it in that one. I'll have to find out. I remember somebody else talking about that. It could be. Yeah, and it's got a coffee cup for a lens hood. So let's see what we have here. This one is probably, I don't know if you can see it, but this is called Natural Bridges. And it's, like most of my things are pretty dark, but down in the bottom, there's some rock arches down in there. I don't know if you can see that or not, but there was absolutely no light down there. So it's pretty hard to get that. And then there's a little ship out on the horizon over there on the left. Kind of a fun place.
And Bruce,
where is that?
What's that?
Where was that picture?
Oh, go ahead.
These are all in the series, all in the Samuel H. Boardman Scenic Corridor. Samuel Boardman is the guy who started the Oregon State Park system. I was wondering, who is this guy?
So I've been down there, Bruce, and quite a bit of hiking to get to some of these places to shoot. Did you just carry all your gear down those trails to get to the spot?
Yes.
Yeah.
What I needed. I didn't take everything, not everything I own, but definitely a headlamp and a tripod and
yeah, well, hats off to you, because I've gone down there just without equipment, and it's tough going.
Yeah. When I can, I go down there before it gets dark.
Yeah.
You kind of know where you're going, but you need a good headlamp to get home.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, you can hit 2 spots in one night, but it's kind of a slow process where you you don't come home with a whole lot of different pictures.
Yeah.
This one is a blend of the foreground, which is still pretty dark,
Mhm.
and the sky.
Bruce, what kind of thought process do you have, like when you're selecting a foreground for example, your star pictures or your Milky Way?
Well, once again, using photo pills, you can see where the Milky Way is going to show at what time. And so this picture here, this is called Indian Sands, and it's a pretty good hike down to this one. So went down there and had dinner down here, watched the sunset. But then, you know, I know where the Milky Way is going to pop up. And so I can plan around that. And in the fall, I know that the Milky Way is going to be moving over to the southwest. Right now it's in the southeast. So it's a great place to go, you know, towards the end of the season. But this is, you know, this is where I was. It's a beautiful place at sunset. But then that's it at night.
Beautiful.
Wow.
And I tend to shoot vertical, you know, to get the whole Milky Way. And I got a meteor coming down right in the middle of the Milky Way.
Whoa.
Kind of bonus. And then, Giannis, exactly what you're talking about. Earlier in the evening, I'd seen this big rock with this is huge. It's, you know, a couple 100 meters wide, sea stack, and it's got a hole in the middle, an arch. And I thought, I wonder if the Milky Way was if I could get it through there. And I thought, okay, if I take my picture of the Milky Way over at Natural Bridges, or excuse me, Indian Sands, that previous spot, I could make it over here right as the Milky Way dropped below the horizon and get the galactic center through the hole. I thought that's a great idea. So I, climbed up. It was quite a hike, about a 20, 30-minute hike back up from that previous spot, drove about 15 minutes down the road, got out here and it's pitch black. I couldn't see the rock at all. So, but finally found it. And that's, so the light coming through the center of that is the core of the Milky Way. Kind of fun.
Oh.
I'm standing in the water.
And Bruce, this is a series of stacked images.
No, this is one image on this one.
With what was your typical exposure to capture the Milky Way, like 30 seconds or something?
No, so that lens opens up to 1.8, and trying to recall, but so in order to get sharp stars with the resolution on this camera, you need to get down to about 8 seconds.
Oh.
So this is, I think, about ISO 6400, 8 seconds at f1.8.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. As the resolution of the camera goes up, you have to get faster.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Bruce, did also a fairly telephoto shot?
No, this is 14 millimeters.
Oh, 14 millimeters. Okay.
Yeah. This is a huge rock thing. It's, like I say, probably 1/4 mile wide. But that 14 millimeter makes everything look far away. Whoops. And this, whoops, go back. This is that same area the following morning, went back, and beautiful sunrise there. This is looking a different direction, but that same area, it's called Myers Creek. So no stars.
Where is it?
That's just south of Bandon, or Gold Beach, excuse me, just south of Gold Beach. Beautiful area.
Yeah.
That's just, Gold Beach is just to the north of this whole Samuel Boardman scenic area. You drive through that and you end up in, what's the next town there? Brookings, I think, which is kind of the end of Oregon.
Yeah, Brookings. I stayed there once. There's a great burger joint there.
Yeah, Brookings is a pretty big town. Although I got stuck in the middle of a Trump parade down there.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. This is a beautiful place called Arch Rock, I think it is. So I went there in the evening, and this is one side of the viewpoint. And if you look straight out, there's an arched rock, but it's a beautiful place. But so come back at night and looking south, and so that's looking north. And this is the view looking south with the stars. And once again, this is multiple images put together. Long exposure for the foreground. And then the stacked image for the sky.
Bruce, there's color in the sky. Is that lingering sunset?
That's color. That's the core of the Milky Way has color in it.
Wow.
And, you know, if you zoom in, if you could zoom in there, you know, with a longer lens, it's really quite colorful. It's amazing.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's got a little yellow orange.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I kind of like the mystery of it all, but it's, you know, some people could tell you all the nebula and so forth that are in there. There's the Horsehead Nebula and something else in there, and I don't even know where they are, but they're all quite colored when you see the real deep space photographs. But the skies were crystal clear, and there's no light pollution in that area, so you start seeing things that we just don't see here.
Yeah, really.
And Bruce, what time of year was this again?
I believe this was November. Yeah, I don't have the dates on here, but I believe it was the first part of November.
I mean, I think that's one of the most interesting things about your pictures, Bruce, is you're taking pictures of stuff we can't see.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's what's fascinating about what you can do now. You know, I used to shoot film, and, you know, 400 or 800 ISO was a big deal. What did I do here? Well, that's interesting. And now, you know, I'm shooting at 6,400, sometimes 12,500. And, you know, you couldn't do that with film. And you can see the Milky Way with your eyes down in this area, but not like this.
Yeah.
You know, with that big a lens, I know it's a big bulbous thing, but with that big of a lens and the time, you know, you can suck in enough light that you can see, you know, this is what's there, but it's not easily visible. You know, you can drive right by, you'll never see it. You got to first have your eyes to adjust to the no light.
I like the shadows of the Milky Way in the rocks here. Those are shadows of the light from the Milky Way. And they're not from anything else.
There was no moon. So
yeah.
The fascinating thing is that the stars generate enough light to actually light the foreground.
Exactly.
Amazing.
Yeah,
I
starlight.
also like what the long exposure does with the water, especially in the foreground, the rock there, how the waves are lapping up against the rocks. It makes that kind of milky, very ghostly looking bit of water.
The exposure for the foreground is, if I recall, is about 4 minutes.
4 minutes, yeah.
But Bruce, isn't the exposure for the stars themselves like basic daylight, because they are being daylight shining on them?
Well, I mean, you've got I mean, 1.8 at 6,400 ISO. You know, the daylight, you just have nothing but white.
Wow, I'm amazed.
It's fascinating. You know, I know I've been out with people and you know, they go, "What are you doing?" I'm taking pictures of the stars, and they kind of go, "Oh yeah, I see some stars up there." And then you show them this, they go, "Where is that?"
Yeah.
Right, you know, it's right in front of you, but that's what's out there. It's kind of amazing. But yeah, I'm out there. There's nobody around. Nobody else there. It's kind of a interesting experience.
Hey, Bruce, I was talking to a fellow that was doing research about the migration west. And he said that he'd read in a number of journals that occasionally the Milky Way would rise and the light coming up over the horizon would be so bright that people thought the sun was coming up.
Oh,
really?
Just to show you how clear the air was back then.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a shame. I can't remember. I heard a percentage, but the percentage of people that have seen the Milky Way is a pretty small percentage. You know, most most people, probably 80% or more, live in town and never see it. You gotta get out.
Ben and I were in the Peace Corps in Ethiopia, and our town was 9,200 feet up.
Yeah.
So we saw this on any clear night. And what Phil was saying was true. You could walk around by starlight at night.
Yeah.
Yes.
What do you do?
Once your eyes adjust and your pupils dilate, it's amazing how much light is being put out. If you're in a car or headlights on, you won't see it. Got to get out where it's dark. Yeah, I don't have any this evening, but up in the bristlecone forest, it's about, gosh, I think it's 10,000 feet up there in Northern California, and clear skies, and it's just so bright, it's quite amazing.
I think I have to admit that often when I see these pictures, I assume that they're fake. So I'm really excited to learn that these are real.
Yeah, it's debatable these days, what you can do in Photoshop and stacking images and so forth. And some people will take the Milky Way and then stick it in. I saw somebody put it in the Venice canals,
That's what that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So, there's some of us nerds that are into this and kind of an unwritten code that, the camera's got to be in one place, your tripod can't move, So
Yeah.
some people will change focal lengths and enlarge the Milky Way. These are all one spot. So interesting stuff. That's all I have.
A real tribute to a lot of work. I think they're great.
Well, thank you very much.
I think they're magnificent, Bruce. I love the connection with the galaxy, that we can be on this little planet and get this scale. It's just mind-boggling.
Exactly. That's what I try to convey. I can't put in words as well, but it just puts things in perspective. All the issues we have, and we're just this little lonely speck out here in this massive thing. So puts things into perspective.
Really.
Bruce, how much time do you spend on, we'll call it like the post, after you assemble like your images, if you're putting the 15 together, like there's a lot that you can do like with color and, and I look at the color in this and having photographed the Milky Way quite a bit, I was like, I wonder, what is the real true color there?
Yeah. Well, some people make the night sky very blue, and in my opinion, it's black. There's nothing out there. But when you see the real deep sky photographs, the stars are different colors, and the Milky Way, those nebula are red, and there's a lot of color out there to capture, but it's hard to say. It's hard to say. There is color in there. I've seen,
Bruce,
I have to try those star trails, and if you underexpose them, you'll get a whole rainbow of color of stars. Most of the stars
some
are
of the
actually
pictures from deep
overexposed.
space. So
What's that?
Bruce, some of the pictures from deep space, aren't those because of the different gases put out? The people that do the post-processing for like NASA and stuff, don't they color those depending on the type of gas?
I don't know how much they color them and how much is naturally colored. It's kind of confusing. I've watched how they process them, and they do kind of enhance the colors or bring them out, but I believe the color is there.
Hey, Bruce.
Yeah.
I've found that when I'm shooting pictures of the Milky Way, that the condition of the atmosphere changes the color of the sky quite a bit. So I don't know what it is. And it's whatever the camera sees as a white balance, because we can't see it like this anyway. So it's hard to know what the color really is.
Yeah. Yeah. I do fix my white balance about 3,800 Kelvin.
Yeah.
So it doesn't just go wacky, but Yeah, it's all an interpretation, I think.
The other thing is you call it pictures, astrophotography, or pictures of the Milky Way, but it's so much more than that, because it's pictures of the atmosphere. Every one of your pictures has foreground interest. It's pictures of the Earth. So if you just look at a picture of the stars or the Milky Way, to me it's kind of bland. It lacks context, which is all these foreground provide context and beauty to me.
Well, thank you very much. That's, I see the deep space photography and it's interesting, but it's stars, and there's nothing there. I try to have, foreground interest, and, so there's a relationship between the Earth and where we are.
Yeah, scale, and like this photo here with the milky creamy sea is really nice.
Yeah, thank you.
And do you use like the photographer's ephemeris to before you head out to your locations to decide where the Milky Way is going to be before you go there?
I use photopills. It's similar.
Mhm.
Photopills is it's similar to the photographer's ephemeris, but yeah, I know where it's going to be. I know exactly where it's going to pop up.
Mhm.
It gives you a augmented, what is that? Augmented reality, I believe it's called. And so you can, on your iPhone, you can see where you are and where the Milky Way will be at what time. So yeah, I know exactly where it's going to be. That's how I got the picture of the core through the rock, because I knew it was going to be dropping, into the horizon right at that time, and should be right at sea level. So that's kind of fun.
Right. But it's not a perfect science either, because you would rather have had that the roof of that house right under the main star there.
Well, I can't move the North Star.
Yeah.
I could do that in Photoshop, but that, I have my principles.
Funny.
Bruce, I love your photographs, because they're very thoughtful, and I really appreciate that about your work.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I put a lot of thought into it, and it's a real pleasure to do this.
Yeah, thanks.
A lot of pictures real fast,
Well, Bruce,
Thanks for sharing, Bruce.
Yeah, very much. That was amazing images. And so I think we're going to go ahead and formally wrap up here, folks. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. And I think that was thoroughly enjoyable set of presentations. So thank you to the presenters. Very well done.
Thanks for hosting, Doug.
Yeah, thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
It's Doug.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.